Police emergency?
My brother has not been answering texts or cell phone calls or emails, and I could be making a mountain out of a molehill.
In today's episode, we delve into the story of Craig Rideout, a 50-year-old dedicated father and IT specialist residing in upstate New York near Rochester. His disappearance in July 2016 prompted his sister to be one of the initial reporters of his absence. Little did she know that there was a deeper, more complex tale unfolding beneath the surface. Craig Rideout and his sister Robin were as close as siblings can get. They enjoyed having long conversations with one another on the phone as adults after being raised in a family-oriented household. When Craig married his wife, Laura, and began having children, he and his sister grew closer, bringing the entire family together. In fact, Craig and Laura went on to have 7 children, and naturally, this didn't come without its fair share of challenges. Because they had such a large household, Craig often spent most of his time working to make money to cover the bills and other expenses. But this left him feeling like an absent father. Although he could provide for his children, he felt bad about spending so much time away from home while working. In 2014, Laura presented Craig with divorce papers, which surprised him. However, he hoped this would be an opportunity for him to better himself and his relationship with the children. During this time in Craig's life, his sister, Robin, stood by his side. She was the shoulder he needed to lean on during those difficult times. As someone who spoke regularly to her brother, staying in touch via calls and text messages, it is no surprise that Robin felt concerned about her brother on July 20th, 2016, after he hadn't returned any of her calls or text messages. In fact, she was so worried that she actually called 911 to report the situation. In her call to 911, Robin says she's concerned because her brother hasn't been responding to calls, texts, or emails, which is very unlike him.
Police emergency?
My brother has not been answering texts or cell phone calls or emails, and I could be making a mountain out of a molehill.
A local officer received an urgent call to check on Craig Rideout at his residence, joining forces with Robin for a wellness check. Upon arrival, the officer discovered an empty house, raising concerns. Despite the absence of any apparent signs of trouble, Robin's worry intensified as she hadn't heard from Craig in over 18 hours, an unusual silence. In an effort to unravel the mystery, Monroe County sought a search warrant to thoroughly investigate the home. As the process of obtaining the search warrant unfolded, investigators noticed Laura, Craig's former wife, accompanied by a man and 2 children in a vehicle. Seizing the opportunity, an investigator approached Laura, posing questions about her presence and seeking any insight into the unfolding situation. According to Laura, she was on the premises to bring the children back after spending the day with them. When asked if she'd seen Craig lately, she claimed she had not seen him. In the meantime, the 911 dispatch center received a call at around 7:30 in the morning. The call came in from a local farmer in Yates County who happened to be riding his bicycle when he noticed blood near the dirt road. He decided to walk off into the brush to inspect the area further, which is when he came across a brown tarp. Because of the call, investigators headed to the scene to get a feel for what was going on. As the investigators arrived, they observed tire marks and a grim scene of blood-soaked dirt and leaves. Their attention turned to a brown tarp, under which they uncovered the distressing sight of a partially mutilated man. His face and body bore the marks of acid, seemingly employed in a sinister attempt to obscure his identity. While the precise nature of the acid remained unidentified, investigators were certain of its corrosive potency, capable of eating through skin, clothing, and beyond. As investigators collected evidence at the scene, their attention was drawn to a shovel resting on the ground, seemingly untouched. In a peculiar twist, a phone began to ring, and they soon discovered that the sound emanated from Craig's pocket. They'd also made the realization that Craig hadn't been murdered at the scene, which gave them reason to believe they would find a possible crime scene at Craig's home or somewhere else in the Yates County region. Investigators reached out to Robin, Craig's sister, to let her know that a man's body had been found, but that they weren't entirely sure the body belonged to Craig. Knowing that this was likely her brother, Robin quickly went numb. She wanted to know who could have wanted to cause such harm to her brother. And despite feeling such incredible grief, she remained strong enough to assist officers with the investigation. Robin remembered that Craig had a hidden camera disguised as a clock that might have been recording when he went missing, which gave investigators something to investigate during their home search. The investigators began watching countless hours of footage recorded on the hidden camera. Most of the footage was basic, day-to-day activity. Sadly, because the memory card to the hidden camera was full, it didn't capture any footage from the day that Craig was last seen or heard from by his loved ones. While that was certainly a disappointment, investigators had no plan to give up that easily. Instead, they continued to Craig's basement and noticed quite a few boxes on the ground. There was also a Diet Coke bottle on the floor, along with a black plastic garbage bag containing tons of bloody paper towels. At this point, noticing the extensive amount of blood everywhere, investigators believed they'd finally encountered their crime scene. At this phase, the investigators used an alternative light source to check for blood and would find splatters of blood everywhere, including on the boxes and walls of the basement. Craig's home was located in Monroe Country, but his body had been found roughly 50 miles away in Yates County, meaning he was brutally attacked in his home before being tossed out in the fields in Yates County. So, who could have possibly wanted Craig dead? It was a question investigators were determined to find the answer to. So they began scanning through surveillance footage while combing through cell phone records because Craig had his phone in his pocket at the time of death. The investigators eventually came across footage of two vehicles passing by a road leading to the area in which Craig's body was found. After zooming in on the footage, they noticed it was the victim's van traveling closely with another vehicle, most likely a sedan. From this point, they decided to scan through footage for the same day, just later. They would then see the same two vehicles passing by together on the same road, only this time they had a better idea of the make, model, and color of both vehicles. One vehicle was a minivan, while the other was a sedan. While strolling through additional cameras on the same route, they spotted these same two vehicles traveling together, always one right behind the other throughout the trip. Unfortunately, investigators couldn't determine exactly where these two vehicles ended up. As the investigators continued to work on putting the pieces of this puzzle together, the coroner's office positively identified the body found underneath the brown tarp as that of Craig Rideout. Robin was left with the daunting task of telling her mother that Craig was no longer alive. In the meantime, local authorities decided to find out where the shovel had been purchased and who had happened to buy it. They would discover the shovel was sold at the local Walmart near Craig's house, so they wanted to review surveillance footage from inside the store to see what they would find out. As they combed through the footage from Walmart, they noticed a sedan pulling up in the parking lot. The vehicle looked a lot like the sedan seen earlier on the traffic cameras, so it naturally raised some red flags for the investigators. After sitting there for a minute or so, someone appears to get out of the vehicle from the back seat. The person, who appeared to be a male, walked into the Walmart. In an effort to connect the dots, they checked additional footage from the store and found an improved image of a possible perpetrator. The footage provides an overhead view of the man at the register who proceeds to purchase a shovel at the checkout area. The same shovel found near Craig's body was pictured on the conveyor belt with leather gloves, and the person standing beside the cart Who happened to be buying these items? It was none other than Colin Rideout, Craig's son. Investigators were absolutely stunned. They watched as Colin paid for the gloves and the shovel before exiting Walmart and returning to the sedan. And just at this point, where they're getting ready to call it for the night after working on the case for endless hours, the investigators receive a phone call out of Devil's Bathtub, an area in Mendon Ponds Park. A lady was walking around the park and noticed two males dumping trash from their cars into the pond. The authorities arrived at the scene, separating the two individuals before noticing that they were Colin and Alex Rideout, both of Craig's children. Interrogations of the brothers commenced as investigators probed into their activities at Devil's Bathtub. The siblings exhibited a degree of timidity, which heightened when inquiries turned towards their father's disappearance. While the investigators engaged the brothers, the fire department concurrently undertook the task of retrieving bags discarded in the pond. It was during this operation that one investigator approached Colin, delivering a cryptic message. "Reveal the bag's contents before I inspect it, and it will work in your favor." According to Colin, he wasn't sure what was in the bag, so investigators started to ask Alex if he knew where his dad was. Alex didn't attempt to hide the fact that he wasn't too fond of his dad, Craig. Alex quickly exits the conversation, with authorities working on getting food for the boys. Their goal was to obtain DNA profiles from the straws on the drinks of both Colin and Alex, which would help them with the investigation. While Colin and Alex were eating their fast food, the fire department and investigators worked feverishly to go through the bags disposed of in the pond. The bags contained 4 bottles of drain cleaner and blood-stained clothing. Investigators decide to arrest Colin and Alex, charging them with tampering with evidence. But while they had the boys in custody, they were certain that someone else was behind this crime. So, who could it be?
What's going on? Your brother went out for a walk? I mean, you were just like out and suddenly people show up and it's like, well, that's... I've never really encountered police before, so it was like, oh, I'm doing college next year. Always, he'd always threaten, oh, I could just disappear. But I figured he was on to the next flight to Mexico. Have you heard anything?
Well, I emailed him last night. I didn't hear from him. I've been kind of worried about him for, stuff's just been freaking me out.
Tell me what's in that bag before I see what's in that bag. It'll be better for you.
I don't know what's in the bag.
The next steps in this investigation involved using the UPC label on the drain cleaner to determine where it was sold, which was Walmart. And it just so happened that those drain cleaner bottles were purchased at the same Walmart near Craig's home. The investigators would use surveillance footage from inside the store to see who made the purchase. Once again, it was Colin at the register. But was it possible that he was there with someone else? After Colin exits the store with the items bought at Walmart, investigators review footage from outside the store and spot someone they recognize. It was Laura Craig's ex-wife. Investigators found something creepy beyond Colin and Alex, the first suspects. They worked really hard checking security videos and looking at what people bought. Guess what? They saw Laura ride out in Walmart with a guy named Paul Tucci. While they were shopping, it got weird. They were buying tarps. But here's the crazy part. They picked a brown tarp that looked just like the one covering Craig's dead body in Yates County. Everything started fitting together like a dark puzzle. With a bunch of proof against Laura, Colin, Alex, and Paul, the investigators did something big. They charged all 4 with murder and messing with evidence, throwing them into a big criminal investigation. In October 2017, Laura Rideout and her son Colin Rideout received sentences of 26 years to life in prison for hiding the truth and killing Craig. The victim's other son, Alex Rideout, wasn't accused of murder, but he was found guilty of messing with evidence. He got a 2 to 8 year prison sentence for that. As for Paul Tucci, He was declared not guilty of murder because there wasn't enough evidence tying him to the crime. Prosecutors think Craig's death happened because of a fight over custody and a divorce. As we conclude this chilling journey into the depths of true crime, we're left with more questions than answers. The mysteries that shroud these cases remind us of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk within the human soul. If you found yourself captivated by the twists and turns of these real-life tales, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join our community. Your support allows us to continue diving into the darkest corners of true crime. Remember to stay vigilant and keep a watchful eye on the world around you. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the shadows of true crime. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and goodbye for now.